Oh, by the way, you seem to have many names. Well, what name do you prefer?
You can call me Aubrey because my channel is Aubrey in Silicon Valley.
How did you choose Aubrey?
I choose Aubrey because it starts with A, and if someone save your contact in their phone,
You're first.
you are the top.
But it's AU. You could have chosen Alice.
AA.
Or just AA or AAA.
Yeah.
Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, I don't want to be too ambitious. Hi everyone, this is Aubrey. Welcome back to my channel. Today I invited Jim Block. He is a photographer, and I met Jim when my orientation in Haas. And he leaves me a very deep impression about his passion to the work, and everyone in my cohort loves him. So Jim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, I don't need to introduce myself to your cohort. They all love me, but I do have to look passionate and high energy, so I've got to up my game. Anyway, I'm Jim. I've been photographing at Haas as a freelancer for about 30 years, and I photograph other of the schools at Berkeley, the law school, we've got the business school, some of the sciences, the Center for Latin American Studies, education, the environment, everything. I also work for other schools, but we'll pretend like I only work for Berkeley. Yes, not even Berkeley. I only work for Haas. So I've been involved with the evening weekend program for probably almost 20 years.
Wow.
And every year in the middle of summer is something called We Launch. And that's where I met Aubrey.
Yes.
Along with, how many were, about 400 people were there?
Almost, I think 360 something.
360 people that love me. Well, maybe 2 or 3 hate me, but it's a good balance. But I love all of them because the We Launch, that first weekend, it's just such an interesting weekend.
It's amazing.
For me to photograph. It is amazing.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be like that. Like 20 years ago, it was night school. You just went to class, you had your coffee, your cigarettes, your dinner, and you went home.
And then you got your diploma.
And you got your diploma with no connection at all to Berkeley.
Yeah.
And then some very smart people took over the program maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And they said, let's make all of these incoming students feel like they're a part of a larger community called Berkeley.
Yeah.
And it just worked incredibly well. Trust the system. I never believed in it, but now I do. And because every year when I see all of you on the first day, Friday, in the morning, you're a little nervous. You're a little wondering, have I done the right thing? Do I really want to be back in school?
Yeah.
And you're all on best behavior. And then as the day goes and as the programs unroll, I just watch everybody get more and more connected and realize this is a good decision. And it's going to be fun, it's going to be hard, but it's going to be part of something. We're all part of something larger beyond yourself.
Yeah.
Students always.
Students always, of course. Like, it's amazing to have someone to observe this evolution, not only for the program in Berkeley, as you said, it's very different from 20 years back and now. And also the students changing, like how they get connected to the school and how they build this connection and they keep growing.
Yes.
So, and you mentioned that you have been in photography for 30 years.
For 30 years.
And you serve the clients, not only the institution, but also like famous people like Vice President Harris. And how did you discover this career 30 years back? And that's your passion.
Well, a very, very, very short bio. I came out here in 70. I was finished with school, didn't really know what I wanted to get into, but I knew it would be something that dealt with film, movies. So I should have gone right to Los Angeles, but San Francisco at that time was a much more magical city. It had much more of a draw for everyone who was young. I formed a company with a friend of mine from college called Word Rights, and we wrote scripts. And to survive in Northern California, we would write movies and all and try to sell them in Los Angeles, but we weren't that successful. But we would take any job that came along. And Silicon Valley there were two companies, and only two companies, Raytheon and Ford Aerospace, were the only two companies that were technically there. We didn't. There was no software companies yet. There was none of that. This is like Jurassic Park. It was primitive, and so we would talk to the engineers in these companies. We would translate the engineering language into marketing language so that they could make marketing and fundraising films. There wasn't even video yet. It was slideshows, presentational slideshows, so that the money people could see what was going on in these technical companies. And these people had no technical background themselves that would explain in regular talk the technical stuff that was going on.
Yeah.
This was okay. It really wasn't my world, the writing world, but we were making a living. And then in the 80s, we formed a little company called Group 66, which did rock videos at the very beginning of MTV. MTV was only a year old. So we would do rock videos of the various local bands. And that was new. And that was fun. But the mid-80s came around and I realized it just wasn't happening. My dreams, my Hollywood dreams, were not happening in San Francisco. And I didn't want to go down to LA and start over again. I separated, kind of like a divorce, from my writing partner. He was very fair. He gave me half of what little bank account we had. And I was starting over at the age of 39.
Wow.
And so I went to a psychologist on Market Street named Dr. Chope. He had a little card that said, where there's Chope, there's hope. And for $1,000, he gave me a series of tests to determine what direction I should be in, where I should be going.
Is that like give you the career advice?
He was a career counselor.
And for $1,000 back to 80s.
Yes, this is the mid 80s.
Wow.
And so he would talk with me, and we'd try to figure out what makes sense. I punched a lot of computer cards, which were fed into a computer. This was that era, and it would come up with recommendations. And he said I could, because of my personality and all, I could become, and I'll never understand this. He said I could either become a florist, I could become a spy, or I could get into, the visual arts like photography. And I figured, well, if I become a photographer, I can be like a florist, arranging things. I can be like a spy, watching people, but finding out about them.
What characteristic he find on you can develop this certain type of careers?
For $1,000, I'll tell you, I have no idea. But there was something about him that gave me hope. And I went to City College in San Francisco, $6 a credit. They had, from what I heard, was a pretty good photo department.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I wanted to learn how to be a photographer, because my theory is that you don't learn how to become something. You find out what inside of yourself, the skills you have already, maybe that you're born with, are most useful in developing the direction that you want to go into. Now, something like photography encompasses everything. You can be a dance photographer. You can photograph people. You can photograph institutions. You can photograph animals, objects, catalogs, anything. So those 3 years I spent at City College were spent kind of like at a smorgasbord, where you've got all this food in front of you. I'm going to try everything.
So you start with that script company and then come to this photography. But for me, the way how they get connected is the way how you describe others, either by words, by the script, or by the image.
Yes.
Do you feel you have the eyes to look at the people, or you have the eyes to look through the people?
I've got an organ, but it's not the eyes. It's an interest in people. It's more the heart.
The empathy?
The empathy, and one needs an eye, at least one eye for photography, to put it up to the camera. But I didn't approach photography the way artists approach it.
Okay.
Artists have a different eye. They're into the composition. They're into the form. They're into creating something. Photography is the same way, but I was more interested in telling a story. My background was in scriptwriting.
Yes.
I loved stories when I was growing up. We all love stories. And so how do you make a movie that's one frame, one image that tells a story? So that was the challenge and the skill set that I had. was to use photography as a way of, well, beyond just telling a story, because it sounds like I'm a detached observer, it's also connecting with people. Empathy is a tool for connecting with people, understanding them so that you can tell their story, and maybe they don't even realize it's their story. A lot of people, I take their pictures and they say, there's something here that I haven't seen before, but it's in that person. So that's part of the skill. You can't learn that. School is good for refining the technical, refining the eye, the exposures, the composition, the rules of thirds, all that stuff. But school doesn't teach you how to be empathetic, how to connect with people. You bring that to the school.
And what can teach you? Do you think it's just a natural thing, or you can develop it from your experience, your life?
Well, let's hope that everyone can learn empathy, but everyone has empathy. It's just, it may not be emphasized. It may be hidden. There's a lot of good classes that you guys have to kind of, because empathy and communication are very much connected. And I think Haas, more than business, is really a communication school. Because if you can't sell your idea, if you want to, create a startup or something, or if you want to become a team leader, you better be a good communicator. Because that's the most critical thing in general in life.
Yeah, that's a good point. So coming back to the way how you pivot your careers, for most of the people like me, maybe that's most people, but they choose a major when they were really young.
Right.
And for me, I chose engineering.
Yes.
And then I stay with technology until now.
Right.
But for you, you are exploring your career by trying to analyze on yourself what I will fit in, right? Or you get the consultant from your advisor.
From the advisor.
Yeah.
Because
I had the feeling that many people, they were forced to a career because what they already learned in college or in graduate school. Right. They cannot just give up what they learned for past few years and then change to something else. Why do you think you choosing the different ways and pick the work?
Well, this may sound odd. The idea of committing to something has never been of a high value for me, in part because there's a non-committal quality to me, that resists commitment. We won't go into a lifetime of relationships. I am happily married now. And so there had to be commitment at some point in my life. But growing up, just by the nature of my biography, my father died when I was young. The money that we had went. My mother moved our family back from California to the Midwest. And I grew up having to survive with very little in a difficult situation. So you had to be adaptable to survive. So adaptability is my strength, commitment not. But within the world of adaptability, you can try this. Now, I have I'm going to say some negative things about myself. On one level, I'm very lazy. On another level, hard to commit to something or other. And it's kind of, I'm very passive in a sense. But passivity has its strengths. It wasn't like I came out of school with a career, with an idea. It was also the era that I was in, the 60s. It was like the hippie era, live for today, worry about tomorrow. It was all of those values which sound awful now, but it's what we believed in then. Those engineers, my friends who are engineers or pre-med or pre-law, wouldn't broadcast that fact because those things were uncool. They were unhip. These people went on to become much more successful than I, much quicker than I did. But back then, the idea was adaptability, was change, metamorphosis, that we used to say mutate or dinosaur. In other words, change or you're gone. So that little seed of mutability, of changeability, of adaptability was useful when I got older. I was in my mid to late 30s. The idea of having to change everything wasn't as difficult for me as it might be for a person who was on track A. And suddenly track A ended. What do they do now? Because track B and track C are never things they ever considered.
Okay. So seems like you developed this adaptability skill when you were really young because you
survive.
have to survive. And but it also gives you the capability, no matter what happened, you can survive and you can find a solution.
Yeah.
You will not let yourself reach to a dead end. And you said you are lazy, but I totally disagree with that. I cannot imagine people your age working with this passion and with this energy.
Well, as we've always learned, and we have to learn more and more, it is possible to contain conflicting notions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in a
Yeah.
sense, we have to accept the fact that I'm lazy. You know, I'm not racing out with my camera to capture this beautiful sunset. I don't think of those things. It's like if there's a job that comes up, the phone rings, I pick up the phone, I say yes before I say who is it. That's something that I learned. Just say yes.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in photo school,
Mm-hmm.
there was this wonderful photographer, I forget her name, but she said, always say yes. If somebody asks you, can you photograph dogs? Well, maybe you've never photographed a dog before, but you say, of course I can. And then you find out whether you can or not.
Yes.
You know, the worst thing they can do is fire you. They can't kill you.
Yeah.
There's Spielberg, the filmmaker, was his third film was Close Encounters.
Mm-hmm.
Huge budget. Here was this young guy, 23, 24, and he's on the set and he's surrounded by 1,000 technicians, actors. They're all looking to him for leadership. And he said, he felt like, you know, what's that syndrome called? It's, you know, where you know you're a phony. I'm trying to remember the name of the syndrome. It'll come to me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, they can fire me, but they can't kill me.
Mm.
So you say yes, and then you determine whether you can photograph a dog.
Yeah.
Somebody said, can you photograph baked potatoes?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah. I also realized that, like, for most of the people I ask, like, I'm doing these 20 people I met in Haas, would you like to participate? They are so open-minded. So those are people I think the kind of far from me, like the totally stranger. I might have met them once, twice in the school, and then but I invite them to share their story. They said, yes, I would like to do it. Even they didn't ask me how many subscribers you have, how many views of your video you have. It's like they like to share their story. They like to open up an opportunity to show the people. And also back to what you said, you don't commit to something really hard, right? So when I grow up, like the education I got is like, you need to study hard or you will not find a good way out. What you will regret, like what at some point that because of you didn't study hard, you didn't do your mathematics good. And that's one example. Another example is like for the people around me, many of them, they said, oh, I'm saving money. I cannot spend the money to enjoy the life because I want to retire early because I'm worried that one day when I reach some age, I will lose my job. How do I survive at that moment? I don't agree with that because I also get connected with you for that adaptability that no matter what happens, even they fire me, I can always find a way out. I trust myself. When I grow, I get more instead of being less to the society.
And probably for you, that quality has survival value as much as it does for me. I mean, I have to smile when I think about that life route where you focus on something, you do it, and then you look forward to not doing it.
Yeah.
You know, to retiring. The idea of retiring, you know, existed in front of me, especially during the pandemic. My wife said, you know, after spending 2 or 3 years, kind of living a different kind of life, you know, we were the poster couple for, you know, camping. We got bikes. We got into bird watching. You know, we don't have children, so we have the luxury of choice, and it was kind of like Club Med for us. And she's an architect. She redid our house, so it felt very comfortable. And my real dream is to get into music.
Oh.
So let's meet back here on this fabulous porch in, maybe 5 years and see if I can commit to something or not. Just because that seems like the last act, the last third.
Yeah.
I'm at that point now where most of my life is behind me. So the part in front of me is really critical.
Is that rock music?